Hey, altruistic, hey, altruistic followers and constructive critics. How are you? You are dear and near in 2021 after dark year 2020. It is social activist come good-hearted preacher Professor S. Lack with sheer ecstasy for my 130th 130 video on unveil of publication on YouTube today, 31st March 2021, Wednesday. The topic for today is pros and cons of National Education Policy (NEP) shortly 2020. The National Education Policy 2020, which was approved by the Union Cabinet of India on 29th July 2020, outlines the vision of India's new education system. The new policy replaces the previous national policy on education 1986. The policy is a comprehensive framework for elementary education, for higher education as well as vocational training in both rural and urban India. The policy aims to transform India's education system by 2021. Shortly after the release of the policy, the government clarified that no one will be forced to study any particular language and that the medium of instruction will not be shifted from English to any regional language. The language policy in NEP is a broad guideline and advisory in nature, and it is up to the states, institutions, and schools to decide on the implementation. Education in India is a concurrent list subject. Himachal Pradesh has become the first state to implement new education policy 2020. The national education policy should be implemented in all schools over India by 2022. The NEP 2020 replaces the national policy on education of 1986. In January 2015, committee under former Cabinet Secretary T.S.R. Subramanian started the consultation process for the new education policy. Based on the committee report in June 2017, the draft NEP was submitted in 2019 by a panel led by former Indian Space Research Organization ISRO Chief Krishnasamy Kasturirangan. The draft new education policy (NEP) 2019 was later released by Ministry of Human Resources Development, followed by a number of public consultations. T74 draft NEP was 484 pages. The ministry undertook a rigorous consultation process in formulating the draft policy. Over 2 lakh suggestions from 2.5 lakh gram panchayats, 6,600 blocks, 6,000 urban local bodies, 676 districts were received. NEP 2020 envisions an India-centric education system that contributes directly to transforming our nation sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high-quality education to all. The NEP 2020 enacts numerous changes in India's education policy. It aims to increase state expenditure on education from around 3% to 6% of the GDP as soon as possible. 1. Language. The policy raises the importance of mother tongue and regional languages. Medium of instruction until class 5 and preferably beyond should be in these languages. Sanskrit and foreign languages will also be given emphasis. The policy also states that no language will be imposed on the students. A more detailed language strategy will be released in the National Curriculum Framework in 2021. Second one, school education. The 10 plus 2 structure will be replaced with 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 model. This will be implemented as follows. First one is a foundational stage. This is further subdivided into 2 parts. 3 years of preschool or Anganwadi, followed by classes 1 and 2 in primary school. This will cover children of ages 3 to 8 years. The focus of studies will be in activity-based learning. Preparatory stage, classes 3 to 5, which will cover the ages of 8 to 11 years. It will gradually introduce subjects like speaking, reading, writing, physical education, languages, art, science, and mathematics. Third one, middle stage, classes 6 to 8, covering children between ages 11 and 14. It will introduce students to the more abstract concepts in subjects of mathematics, sciences, social sciences, arts, and humanities. Secondary stage, classes 9 to 12, covering the ages of 14 to 19 years. It is again subdivided into 2 parts, classes 9 and 10 covering the first phase, while classes 11 and 12 covering the second phase. These 4 years of study are intended to inculcate multidisciplinary study coupled with the depth and critical thinking. Multiple options of subjects will be provided. Instead of exams being held every academic year, school students will only attend 3 exams in classes 2, 5, and 8. Board exams will be continued to be held for classes 10 and 12, but will be redesigned. Standards for these will be re-established, will be established by an assessment body. PARACT, Performance Assessment Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development. To make them easier, these exams will be conducted twice a year with students being offered up to 2 attempts. The exam itself would have 2 parts, namely the objective and descriptive. This policy aims at reducing the curriculum load of students and allowing them to be more interdisciplinary and multilingual. Report cards will be holistic, offering information about the student skills. Coding will be introduced from class 6 and experiential learning will be adapted. The midday meal scheme will be extended to include breakfast. More focus will be given to students' health, particularly mental health, through the deployment of counselors and social workers. Higher education. It proposes a 4-year multidisciplinary bachelor's degree in an undergraduate program with multiple exit options. These will include professional and vocational areas and will be implemented as follows. A certificate after completing 1 year of study, a diploma after completing 2 years of study, a bachelor's degree after completion of a 3-year program, a 4-year multidisciplinary bachelor's degree, the preferred option. MPhil, Masters of Philosophy courses are to be discontinued to align degree education with how it is in Western models. The Higher Education Council of India, HECI, will be set up to regulate higher education. The Council's goal will be to increase class enrollment ratio. The HECI will have 4 verticals. National Higher Education Regulatory Council, NHERC, to regulate higher education, including teacher education, while excluding medical and legal education. National Accreditation Council, NAC, a meta-accrediting body. Higher Education Grants Council, HEGC, for funding and financing of universities and colleges. This will replace the existing National Council for Teacher Education, NCTE, All India Council for Technical Education, AICTE, and the University Grants Commission, UGC. General Education Council, GEC, to frame graduate attributes, namely the learning outcomes expected. It will also be responsible in framing a national higher education qualification framework, NHEQF. The National Council for Teacher Education will come under the GEC as a professional standard setting body, PSSB. Other PSSBs will include professional councils such as Veterinary Council of India, Council of Architecture, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, and National Council for Vocational Education and Training. The National Testing Agency, NTA, will now be given the additional responsibility of conducting entrance examinations for admissions to universities across the country, in addition to the JEE, Joint Entrance Examination Main, and NEET. That is for medical. Okay. The policy proposes that higher education institutes like the IITs make changes with regard to the diversity of learning. The policy proposes to internationalize education in India. Foreign universities can now set up campuses in India. The fees of both private and public universities will be fixed. Third one, teacher education. The NEP 2020 puts forward many policy changes when it comes to teachers and teachers' education. To become a teacher, a 4-year bachelor education will be the minimum requirement needed by 2030. The teacher recruitment process will also be strengthened and made transparent. The National Council for Teacher Education will frame a national curriculum framework for teacher education by 2021 and the national professional standards for teachers by 2022. The policy aims to ensure that all students at all levels of school education are taught by passionate, motivated, highly qualified, professionally trained, and well-equipped teachers. Fourth one, other changes. Under NEP 2020, numerous new education institutes, bodies, and concepts have been given legislative permission to be formed. These include National Education Commission, headed by the Prime Minister of India, Academic Bank of Credit, and digital storage of credits to help resume education by utilizing credits for further education. National Research Foundation to improve research and innovation. special education zones to focus on the education of underrepresented group in disadvantaged regions. Gender Inclusion Fund for assisting the nation in the education of female and transgender children. National Educational Technology Forum, a platform to facilitate exchange of ideas and technology usage to improve learning. The policy proposes the new language institutions such as the Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation and the National Institutes for Pali, Persian and Prakrit. Other bodies propose to include the National Mission for Mentoring, National Book Promotion Policy, National Mission on Foundational Literacy and Numeracy. Now that you are knowledgeable of NEP 2020, let us get on to critical analysis. All of us are aware that without adequate knowledge, one should never proceed with analysis. Educational policies determine the social and economic development of the nation, but are often treated with apathy in legislative spheres as they do not provide immediate outcomes for political manifestos. Following intense deliberation in the Constituent Assembly, education ultimately found constitutional expression in the Directive Principles of State Policies, DEPSP. Right to Education, RTE, only gained the title of a fundamental right in 2002 by means of the 86th Amendment. State is bound to formulate a national policy on education to fulfill its constitutional responsibilities conferred by Articles 21A, 41, 45, and 46. A national policy on education was first promulgated in the year 1968 in response to the recommendations of the Kothari Commission and has been renewed twice since in 1986 and 1992 to lay down the principles governing the education system. The Kasturirangan Committee was constituted in 2017 and submitted its education policy draft in 2019. Likely positive outcomes. In a novel move, the NEP emphasizes the quality of education by promoting conceptual understanding and critical thinking. It promises to make education multidisciplinary, well-rounded, and discovery-oriented, and removes the compartmentalization of streams by allowing students greater flexibility in choosing the subjects. It also addresses the need for higher standards of imparting knowledge by curating the national professional standards for teachers, NPST, and a new National Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education, NCFTE. The NEP emphasizes universal access to education along with the plans to increase the gross enrollment ratio and put a stop to the spiraling dropout rate. It proposes a change in the approach to education from the 10+2 model to a 5+3+3 plus 4 model to encompass early childhood care and education. It also provides for regular assessment of nutrition and health, acknowledging mental health too, and assures a nutritious breakfast in addition to midday meals offered to the underprivileged, providing exit options for the undergraduate degree. This policy in part seems to like a welcome relief to students currently crumbling under the pressure of the education system. The proposed peer review system may define the teaching learning process. These factors will pave the way for students to experience a holistic learning process. These are the main positives. First one has to see the positives, bright side. Now let us look at the dark side, likely negative outcomes. A good education policy considers resource mobilization, curriculum drafts, and formulates the possible consequences of a policy on each stratum of the society, something NEP 2020 fails to do. Certain proposed changes herein are vastly flawed. Various aspects of the policy will further class divides the Indian society. The mandatory vocational training is likely in keeping with historical trends of caste differentiation to be directed with a greater vigor towards systematically downtrodden sections, particularly towards the lower castes who have consistently been confined to professions of manual labor. Moreover, the aim of digitalization is feasible only in urban developed areas owing to the dearth of resources. The encouragement of digital libraries in public and private schools, modern digital enabled classrooms in every higher educational institute, HEI, and the exposure to digital literacy and coding are all utopian aspirations in underdeveloped rural educational institutes which scarcely have adequate infrastructure to support the same. Thus, the policy may see the further advancement of the privilege while increasing in consonance with the underprivileged. Under the garb of multilingualism benefiting cognitive abilities, NEP attempts to strip India of one of its greatest strengths, effective communication in English. A proposed medium instruction is regional languages, preferably till grade 5, which will have the higher classes learning English and private schools are at home at the disadvantage of the first generation English speakers from the lower strata. The plight of people with transferable jobs within our multilingual nation remains ignored. The policy ignores the internationalization of the university level, wherein some among the top 100 universities in the world will be permitted to operate in India. This seems far-reaching and provides no incentive to foreign universities to collaborate. Moreover, while there is a clause requiring a legislative framework facilitating entry, there is no provision for funding, which is problematic as fees for private foreign institutions would be exorbitant for the majority, thereby being exclusionary. At the same time, the emphasis on internationalization would seemingly lower the comparative worth of premier national institutions. The policy envisages a regulatory approach mandating full public disclosure of finances and procedures and aims at reducing the commercialization of education, which is a fundamental right. In doing so, it encourages public-private partnerships, PPP, and public-spirited private schools. While said commercialization, which we curb through a mechanism of checks and balances, the policy specifies neither what those checks are nor what will insensitivize private institutions to be philanthropic. This move is therefore quite a travesty, as it may lead to greater privatization along with the harms that come with it, including higher fees. It is pertinent to note that the increased number of private institutions will not be bound to observe the fundamental rights of students. This will grant a larger portion of the education sector to breach Part 3 of the Constitution, such as the prohibition of discrimination. No mention is afforded to reservations for socially and educationally backward classes, thereby effectively reducing the protection granted to disadvantaged sections and further deepening the social divide. Moreover, a little indication is given in the NEP of the Right to Education RTE Act 2005. The education framework at large has been revamped instead of making gradual progress towards the goals laid down by the RTE, Right to Education. The policy must not be misused as a tool to supersede the RTE, since it has not been created in consonance with the same, as this would pose a grave threat to the constitutionality of the policy. A vision to grant all HEIs, higher education institutes, academic and administrative autonomy over a phased-out span of 15 years and to mandate colleges currently affiliated to a university to become autonomous degree-granting colleges is a misguided one. While it is maintained that the autonomy of public institutions will be backed by public financial support and stability, this claim is dubious. The removal of institutional affiliations is likely to result in mismanagement and uncertainty, at least until the phasing out process is complete, especially at the extent of public internal financial support is not confirmed. Education being in the concurrent list, this policy needs cooperation from the states for acceptable execution. The NEP ignores the balance of power between the center and states while making the decisions unsatisfactory. Unsatisfactory answers to the state's concerns are bound to obstruct implementation. The NEP 2020 mentions the undergraduate degree as being a 3 or 4-year program, failing to learn from history. A similar experiment with regard to the 4-year undergraduate program undertaken by the Delhi University, owing to improper implementation, was scrapped years ago. The policy does not provide any solutions to the problems and are earlier encountered, particularly considering the failures of a longer degree with a less specialization. Under the National Testing Agency, NTA, a non-compulsory application-based common entrance exam will be conducted to test conceptual understanding for admissions to all universities and colleges for undergraduate degree. However, standardized testing is inherently problematic, especially with a wide range of diversities as exists in India. No provision mentions lower cutoffs within these standardized tests for backward classes that are victims of an unlevel playing field. Moreover, common admission tests are more likely, owing to the rigid uniformity, to fail to gain a holistic grasp of students' capabilities, while the teaching process too will be narrowed down to fit the limiting scope of these tests in order to maximize scores at the cost of meritocracy. The policy commits to significantly raising educational investment without identifying the source of this additional financial burden, while pointing out the past failure to reach the stated goal of 6% public spending on education. Policy fails to spell out how it will overcome the pre-existing obstacles. The NEP mentions various utopian changes while introducing greater infrastructure, building new institutions, and creating various bodies, but does not mention a plan of action or the funding sources for the same. While numerous potentious promises are made by the NEP 2020, they are scarcely time-bound or guaranteed. It establishes no mandatory mechanism for the enforcement and universalization of the proposed changes. While briefly mentioning the creation of a Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog, but does not specify the scope or method of its functioning. The highly ambitious and largely rhetorical policy owing to its inherent classism, casteism, and lack of clarity regarding implementation showcases the government's lackadaisical attitude towards education. The NEP 2020 would benefit from an overhaul, incorporating changes in accordance to the interests of all major stakeholders, especially those who are the most disadvantaged in status quo. After deliberation with the experts in the field, there is a saying that change is the only constant in real life, but practice the Japanese strategy of taking one small step at a time rather than trying to leap like Americans and then fail. I am not an expert, but an educationist for the past more than 2 decades, and based on intuition and my versatile field experience with the industries, research, consultancy, besides the education field, it is advisable to defer the implementation till the policy is refined for the overall good of the nation, considering all prime consequences and consensus is obtained from all stakeholders, especially parents, students, teachers, educational institutes, etc. Else, it's not likely to achieve the ultimate objectives. Moreover, any changes deemed necessary should be implemented in phases, and drastic changes in a hurry would be certainly like knee-jerk reactions, and it's bound to produce deleterious effects. Do we want that to happen? All bureaucrats think debates, discussion on open-ended topics like this can go on forever. Anyhow, let me pull the plug here. We'll meet again real soon with another interesting topic. Some of the statements views expressed are solely mine based on limited knowledge gained over 6 decades of personal experience. Always watch these videos with a closed caption, subtitles for absolute 100% comprehension as per my sincere recommendation zillion times so far. I know I rushed through to complete the presentation within 20 minutes maximum. This time limit is self-imposed to retain the viewer's attention as a norm. I'm quite aware of the fact that I exceed this time limit. Sometimes I take double or even triple this time depending on the topic. Today I should have taken about 25 to 30 minutes, since I make honest attempts to cover the selected topic more elaborately, including so many intricate fine details referring a wide variety of sources. In particular, Wikipedia, quite extensively besides articles and books published recently. Besides, of course, I sprinkle my own salt and pepper and season it with my personal experiences so far in my life and also intuition. Stay at home as much as possible to maintain social distancing attributed to pandemic novel COVID-19 and prolong your lifespan. Lead a healthy life. God, also known as the Supreme Power, is the one and only one who can put a stop to natural, unnatural, maybe bio-war and cyber-war events like pandemics and epidemics, which ultimately paves the way for apocalypse and extinction of all sentient species on Earth for no fault of theirs. Rest in peace and harmony.